Welcome to Autism Mama Bear Talk. Today we have a super special guest with us, Tom Iland, who is a self advocate, autism speaker, motivational speaker, author, writer, co writer, and he is going to share his amazing life story with us. So, Tom, welcome to my program.
Good
It's
morning.
awesome to have you here, and thank you for coming.
Well, thank you for having me, Ula. It's a pleasure.
Awesome. Tom, I saw your book come to life, and it's your guide to self discovery.
Hmm?
Could you please tell us more about your book and how you and your mom came with the idea? What motivated you guys to write this book, and why? Why did you write this book?
Certainly. Well, here's what the book looks like. It's got the cover there, and the idea is your guide to self-discovery.
Uh huh.
Underneath it says, helping youth with autism and learning differences shape their future.
Right.
And so my mother and I, because I was diagnosed with autism when I was 13, and I've come a long way to accomplish my goals. And my mother, once she accepted my diagnosis, really hit the ground running and became a family advocate, president of the Autism Society of Los Angeles, an adjunct professor in special education. And we decided to put our heads together and write down what worked for us. And she asked me, if you could tell your peers one thing, or what's your secrets to success? And I responded, know yourself, love yourself, be yourself. And she was
I,
taken aback, like, oh my, hold on, let me get a piece of paper and a pen. And she
yes.
turns on the computer as well, starts typing. Like, know yourself, love yourself, be yourself. Okay, tell me more. And then the book started to write itself, and I share some of my experiences and what I've learned along the way. And she went on to format it in a way that young people could understand, because she wrote an entire book about reading comprehension in people with autism. It's called Drawing a Blank, Improving Comprehension for Readers on the
Right.
Autism Spectrum. But basically, this book is written and was written because young people with autism, when they grow up and they are sat down and asked those transitional questions, what do you want to do? Where do you see yourself in 5 years? What are you good at? They tend to say, I don't know. And
Mm-hmm.
so we start putting them on a path to a life that we want for them, but they may not necessarily want for themselves. And as
Right.
a result, they become depressed, anxious, rejected, hopeless when things don't go well or not their way. And so
Mm-hmm.
we need to take a step back and tell them about their diagnosis, explain to them what it means and how it impacts them, so they know what they're good at and where they can improve. They have to understand that love starts with them loving themselves in order for others to love them back. And that by working with those parents, teachers, therapists, social workers, etc., they can become their best selves and live the life that they want.
Mm-hmm.
Also, the ground rule, or the reason we call it come to life, is that you cannot wait for life to come to you. It's up to you to come to life.
Mm.
So you have to get out there and make things happen for yourself.
That's good. That's so good. And it's not just for those kids or adults, young adults on the spectrum. It's for all of us. I mean, I can apply your mantra to myself, because I need this self-discovery for myself. And I'm sure many parents who are there, who are struggling, who are just overwhelmed with reality, with work, kids, shopping, everything, and especially like single parents or parents with children or husbands or wives, with disabilities, all kinds of problems, and they are just getting lost in themselves. They don't know themselves anymore. They're like, where's me? Like from years back when I was growing up, I knew myself, I knew what I wanted, and then as the life came along, they grew older and they just got lost in their daily life. So they need this book as well, because they need to rediscover themselves and
Yep.
love themselves
Mhm.
and then be themselves.
Very much so. And you'd be surprised how many parents withhold the diagnosis from the child. And that is a
Mm,
huge disservice and injustice. And let me tell you that situations are going to come up where the kid's going to realize something's off about them or that they're different. And when I was a kid, what prompted the discussion with my parents was my brother Danny would get calls from his friends looking to hang out. My sister Lisa would get calls from her friends looking
Mm-hmm.
out. And I asked my mom one day, why doesn't the phone ever ring for me?
Mm.
And she had to think fast on her toes. Rather than say, you don't have any friends, that's why you don't get calls, she reframed it to say, you're still learning how to make friends.
Wow.
And then she and my dad proceeded to sit me down at the kitchen table, explain that I have a pattern of differences or certain things are happening to me and that these differences fit a pattern, and asked me if I want to know what it's called. I'm like, no, I don't. Went to my room, eventually came back out and like, all right, what's this pattern of differences called? And
Right.
they explained that it's called autism. And
Uh-huh.
I'm like, well, I don't want to have autism. I want to be like everybody else. Went
Mm.
back to the room, cried for about an hour, pillow
Oh.
soaked, and but eventually I came back out again, and I'm like, Mom, this explains a lot.
Mm-hmm.
And it did, because I was rearranging magnetized letters on the refrigerator into words. I would say lines from movies and TV. We call it
Mm-hmm.
video talk in my family. That's what we call it when I say something I hear in a movie. This explained why I lined up my toys and why I'm
Right.
in the corner having my own fun. But finally, I had some answers or some kind of explanation as to why things were the way they were. But parents are afraid that the kid won't understand, or the kid's self-esteem will be crushed, or the parent won't be in acceptance of the diagnosis themselves. I know my mother was certainly in denial about it for a number of years because her sister, my aunt, was the autism specialist for the state of Illinois,
Mm.
and
Wow.
brought to my mother's attention when I was 4 that I could very well be on the spectrum. And my mother suggested, how dare you sit? Of course, all geniuses play in the corner by themselves. Who wants to play with the dumb little kids?
Yeah.
But little did she know until years later that, yeah, those social indifferences fit autism. And back then, autism criteria was if you were highly intellectually gifted, like I was,
Yes.
that wasn't autism. But it wasn't until 1995, 1996 that
Mm.
you could be intellectually gifted and have the social behavior communication
Right.
difficulties. That was autism. So I got officially diagnosed at University of California, Los Angeles in 1996, and that's when the change
So,
really happened.
what was your official diagnosis?
Mild autism. And I know they have since phased out Asperger's from the diagnostic manuals or put under the autism spectrum disorder
Mhm.
umbrella. But yes,
Right.
mild autism was my official diagnosis.
And what were the characteristics of autism that your aunt and then those specialists noticed that indicated that you had mild autism?
There was a time when I was about 2.5 years old. I stopped talking for 6 months. I just stopped. I had talked up to that point, but then I just stopped. But when
Mm-hmm.
I started talking again, I could read and I could write, I could spell. It was like I took information in like a sponge, and I was
Right.
release it. So the language delay or time of not talking at all, that was one characteristic. Lack of social interaction with peers. And this is something I want parents and teachers to think about, like the idea that kids with autism, or any kid for that matter, in the corner, it may not necessarily be that they're there by choice, because
Mm-hmm.
as you know, people with autism have difficulty socializing or don't really know how to play or to share or to interact with others at first. So really they've been banished to the corner.
Yeah.
So they may not be there by choice all the time. And so I was the one that was having my own fun playing with marble works, Legos in the corner, having my own fun. But I didn't have the social skills or the experience needed to interact with my peers, and that was one indicator that I could very well be on the spectrum.
Right. Tom, we have a question from Christy, my dear friend, and she's asking, how do families proceed when they suspect an adult in their life has autism? Because we were talking about childhood diagnosis,
Right.
but you were diagnosed at the age of 13, which
Mhm.
is quite late. But then we have a plethora of adults who are now being diagnosed. And what are the characteristics of adults on the spectrum who know that they are slightly different? They know that they perceive the world differently, but can you help me with this?
Certainly. So, yes, these kids that are being diagnosed or are on the spectrum or suspected to be on the spectrum, they are growing up and becoming adults. And
Mhm,
a lot of times they go without a diagnosis. But
mhm,
when it comes to addressing them or identifying those patterns of differences or identifying adults with autism, think about those that are not getting calls from friends or haven't had any social interactions or invitations within a year at least. That's
mhm.
one key characteristic. Those that go off to college or aren't able to move up, aren't able to go get through college because it's too overwhelming for them. If they're not moving out of mom and dad's house, particularly when when it comes to employment as well, both
Mhm.
getting and keeping a job. As you may know, over 90% of people with autism have no job or aren't making enough to make ends meet.
Yeah.
Now, I have a little card. It's called Tom's Tips for Telling. It's 10 pointers for telling your child or your young adult about their diagnosis. And
Right.
so we're finding when it comes to adults with autism, yes, some of them are very intellectually gifted or they know a lot about very little. But
Mm-hmm.
in order to be successful, you need to know a little, at least, about a lot. So those that tend to be really hyper focused on certain special interests, they could very well be on the spectrum. And I know
So
even to this,
special interest,
uh,
social interaction, or lack of.
yeah, lack thereof mainly. So
Mm.
special interest back in the day was Star Wars, and I still do love it to this day. And my goal was to be George Lucas's accountant,
Woo!
good with numbers and love Star Wars. So
That's awesome.
and my mother sat me down to say, okay, you want to be George Lucas's accountant? You have to take these college courses. You have to pass these tests. You have to have
I love
job
your mom.
places. So she gave me a reality check. But growing up, I was a big fan of Batman as well. And he's very determined, very disciplined, very goal
Right.
oriented. And he didn't have any superpowers per se. He's still human. So I thought, what would Batman do? He would see this through. So I did get my bachelor's in accounting, became a CPA, worked for Disney as an intern, and they later acquired Lucasfilm. So indirectly and retroactively, I accomplished my goal.
Wow.
But really, for people with autism, they focus so much on their special interest, or maybe they're not so focused on the transferable skills or wanting to
Mm-hmm.
interest in what others have to say or knowing a little bit about a lot of things. And that's what causes them to not necessarily become employable or sociable
Mm-hmm.
because they want to
You,
they know and people aren't interested in that. And so they're thought of as weird.
yeah, you touched on a very good subject of employment because, many families with children now, children on the autism spectrum, are terrified about the future and they are worried, where will my son or my daughter go to work, because, autism diagnosis probably will limit their employment career and everything. So I wanted to invite you to my show to show them, that this ability, I don't put it as disability, I say this ability, because
Good.
it's an ability. It gives you special skills, it gives you different point of view, usually more focused on detail. Am I right?
You are, and you are correct, and very wise, rather, to word it as an ability because when employers and employees or potential employees hear
Mhm.
disability, they run for the hills. And out here in Los Angeles, I'm currently working with an organization called the Uniquely Abled Academy, or UAA. What they're doing is they're realizing that people with autism are really good when it comes to computers, uh,
Right.
like video games, and mind you, I stopped playing video games completely when I was in college going for that accounting degree, and I've
Mhm.
found that really helped me. But for video games, when it comes to people with autism, they're finding that CNC, computer numerical control, it's an
Mhm.
industry that is really, really in demand for people with autism, or people with autism have the skill set and the personality traits that are a great fit for CNC programming. So, what my
Mhm.
mother and I are doing right now, we're training a group of 10 students for soft skills in the workplace, because they know the CNC stuff and they're being taught what to do as far as the industry standards go, but they also need to know how to communicate with a boss, a coworker,
Very
uh,
good.
express dissatisfaction, express satisfaction, or really fit in the workplace, because this is very common across all parts of the spectrum, that you could be so great at your trade, know everything about what you're working on,
Mm-hmm.
you can't socialize or communicate or behave in a way that's appropriate, you're going to get fired. And
Right.
yeah, not all employees or employers are so accepting, and
That's
there
right.
might be some legal matters involved. So young people, and I mentioned direct explicit instruction, or maybe I didn't yet, but people with autism need to be directly and explicitly taught how to behave in certain environments like the workplace, what to say,
Mm-hmm.
how to say it. And you and I were talking before this interview about police as well. People that
Mm-hmm.
direct, explicit instruction on how to interact with the police, because my mother and I do train police officers, but that's not enough. We're kind of
Yes.
shift, we're kind of shifting gears here a little bit, but yes, people with autism have their special interests and their quirks, but they are uniquely abled and have the potential to create things in their workplace and make a big difference in society. But we need to
Mm-hmm.
focus more on the potential and the possibilities and less on the problems and the perils.
Right. But also we have to raise this awareness and acceptance and educate people
Yep.
and future employers about the differences that an employee with autism or on the autism spectrum may be super valuable, but he may need or she may need to hear the question several times, or he or she may ask question over and over again just
Yes.
because this is how they operate. But it doesn't mean that they are less intelligent, or they are just processing the information. So we need to put this disclaimer, if you will, when we apply for a job,
Mhm.
uh, and let them know that we process information slightly different than the neurotypical employees, but our skills are ABCD, and we will benefit your company by so and so and so and so, right?
Absolutely right. And your approach is exactly what I did when I worked at Disney. I was able to get the job without disclosing in an
Right.
interview. And it was an internship, a paid internship. So I was with 5 other interns, and the manager pulled us aside one at a time about maybe 2 weeks into the job and asked, "How are things going? Do you
Mm-hmm.
need explain? Do you need help?" And that's when I took the opportunity to disclose. However, I'd done my homework. I knew myself, love myself, be myself. So I said to my employer, "Well, I have difficulty understanding this part of the job. If you could maybe give my directions in writing, that would help." Also, I
Mm-hmm.
make the same question a lot of times, but it will eventually sink in. And this employer was accommodating and accepting, and that I was able to come to the table and say, "Here's where I need help, and here's how you can help me." And
Mm-hmm.
it didn't cost them a lot, so they went with it. And I ended up getting promoted within that position.
Well done.
I got a lead intern
Awesome.
job, and I literally wrote the script on how to do a property tax return. That's what I was doing with the company, property tax returns. So I gave this script to my interns that I was supervising, and they got their work done faster than ever in the department's history. They had fewer questions, they understood why they were doing what they were doing. So
Mm-hmm.
that's an example of how someone with autism can bring something to the table, and their methodologies can help the entire department and workplace. So
Right.
seeing the potential and the possibilities, giving people with autism the opportunity to succeed and flourish and thrive.
Yes.
That's what's going to make a bigger difference.
Wow. And you nailed it. That's exactly what we have to do, and how we have to also help our kids. Like, I'm trying to explain to my nonverbal 11-year-old boy, Michael, about the future, because, in 7 years, he's going to be an adult, 18
Yeah,
years old. And I'm sure that he will want to go out and work. But right now, we are working on other things that are a little bit more dangerous, like him running away and not having any concept of danger. So
yes,
we're working on this part. He's also nonverbal, but again, I'm telling him that it doesn't matter if you talk or not, because you can communicate to us. So we are working with his speech and language therapist. I am working with him at home as well, and at school, his teachers and therapists are working with him to teach him different ways to communicate, because it doesn't have to be through our language. It can be through a little tablet device, and just showing
But
through different applications and speak through this device. He's using PACS, picture exchange communication system, and he's pretty fluent with it. And even when we go out to the restaurant, he can show what he wants just by using pictures or pointing to the menu item. So through that, I am preparing him for the future as well, and I'm educating him about, that people go to work, that you need to make money in order to buy food and so on. Money just doesn't come from the wall. Like my little daughter, 7 years old now, when she was 3 years old, we were going and she was asking for something. I was like, but mommy doesn't have money. Well, we can go to that wall and get the money out of the wall. She was talking about the ATM machine.
right.
Because for her, this was it. She saw me once or twice taking the money out of ATM, and that was it. So
Yeah.
I am doing that part, educating my kids, but also speaking about educating about safety. You and your mom wrote this. Had this movie, Be Safe. It's a Be Safe project. BeSafeTheMovie.com. And could you please tell us more about this and why your mom came up with this idea and what's it all about?
Certainly. After I talk about the movie, I also have some great advice for you and your son as he prepares to transition. So, the 2 points. First, about Be Safe, the movie. Basically, my mother was the past president of the Autism Society of Los Angeles, and LAPD, Los Angeles Police Department, knocked on her door one day saying, we were having some escalation with people with autism or situations with people with autism. Can you train us, please? And she says, sure. So she does it for years as a volunteer, thousands of officers trained. Well, one day an officer says to her, Emily, I could know someone has autism, but if they run from me, I still have to chase them. And if they fight me, I, the officer, have to fight back and I have to win. Who's
Wow,
teaching the young people to not run and not fight? And the answer was nobody. So
that's
my
true.
mother met with Joey Travolta, John Travolta's brother, out here in Los Angeles, and he owns a film studio called Inclusion Films, where he prepares young people with various learning differences for careers in Hollywood. And
Wow.
so my mother discovered through her years of studying that video modeling is more effective in getting points across to people with autism because they have movies running in their head, TV
Yes.
shows, and when they see something involving an officer, it tends to end very poorly. Like for me, I've got tons of movies playing in my head.
Hmm.
Jim Carrey movies, particularly like Liar Liar, Dumb and
Yes.
Dumber, Ace Ventura, and
I
as I
love
as I'm
I
learning
love
to,
Jim Carrey. Yeah.
yeah, he's such a funny actor, but his interactions with the police in his movies are terrible. And I had to make my mother a promise. If I'm going to have a driver's license, I can't say anything to an officer that Jim Carrey said in his movies. And I kept
Yeah.
that and I've kept that promise to this day.
All
But
right.
but think about our young people and all the things that they've seen on TVs, movies,
Right.
and what they say to an officer that could land them in serious
Trouble.
trouble and run
Yes.
fighting with the police, resisting arrest or evading them.
Wow.
That's causing them to get in trouble. It's running, fighting, reaching to touch the police badge or dog or gun, or into their own pockets, like, oh, that officer wants to see my ID.
Yes.
The
Oh
police
my.
going for a gun.
Yes.
And this is what happened with me when I got pulled over for the first time and going for my ID. Oh, the officer knows I'm going for my ID.
Yes.
Sir, please keep your hands on the steering wheel where I can see them. He did not draw his gun,
Right.
but
Yeah.
had been a little trigger happy, I may not be talking to you right now.
Wow.
So that's what's happening. Our young people are saying and doing the wrong things, landing them in trouble with the police, and training the police is not enough. The young people
Mm.
have to know what to do as well. So my mother developed 7 episodes, 1 hour total, showing what to do instead. We only show people being very calm, very cool and collected, no panic situations, because we want young people to remember everyone being calm, following instructions, staying where you are,
Hmm.
disclosing your diagnosis safely.
Yes.
This is what young people need to know if they're going to be safe. And that's why we did Be Safe the movie. And we do train officers, but we also train teachers and therapists and social workers how to use this curriculum with their students and clients. And we also put on events around the country called interactive screens, where we bring in trained police and introduce them to local youth with learning differences. They get paired up one on one and watch the movie together and do
Mm-hmm.
activities. So this way the police know the young people and the young people know the police, and they're not strangers
Right.
anymore. And then the relationships are built, the gap is bridged, and parents will get an opportunity to talk with officers after the event, and people with autism and other learning differences can have handcuffs put on them to see how that feels, and the police
Mm-hmm.
identify the parts of their uniform and set
Mm-hmm.
boundaries. You can look at my stuff, but only I can touch my stuff.
Right.
So
Wow,
this,
this is
so
so
this
important.
needs to be done in every community around the country, and my mother knows that this curriculum has to be available in every school. So if you go through
Mm-hmm.
Teachtown has a subscription service, and Be Safe is available through Teachtown to be
Mm-hmm.
streamed into your classroom via computer subscription.
Oh, wow. I
So
think all schools, not just the one with inclusion of students on the spectrum, but all schools, because even an average child, so-called neurotypical, would probably run because they would be scared. They would not know what's going on, and they would just run. If policemen would say stop, they would be
yeah,
it's a bad cop. Ah.
it's true, and the police tell us we wish everybody knew the stuff in this movie. Stay where
Yes,
you are, follow our instructions, do what we tell you. We're here to help. We're just looking to get home safe at the end of the night to our families. The police
yes,
want the people, young and old, to know what's in Be Safe.
right. You see, I had an experience with my son a few years ago, and we went to emergency room in hospital. Talk about traumatic experience. It was traumatic for me. It was traumatic for my son. And basically, when they had to take blood sample, and I explained that my son has autism, he doesn't understand, and he's very sensitive. He's now very anxious because he doesn't know what's going on. He's in pain. Could we please put the lights a little bit lower, make more sensory friendly environment, and could you please explain the procedure? We don't have time for this, we don't have time. So my heart was like, and the mama bear in me just, the grizzly came out. And then I saw those nurses, they called 5 nurses to pin him down on the bed and just wrestling with him. He was just a little boy, and I said, please, everyone, leave, leave. No, no blood test, stop, whatever you're doing, stop. And I calmed him down. I showed him the needle. I showed him, what they're going to do. And just one doctor that was doing his duty, she came. It was a lady, young lady, and she came, and I explained that if you do it, if you explain and speak softly to him, he will calm down and he will let you do whatever you have to do. And yes, I was right. He calmed down. He understood the procedure because he's not, challenged in his head. He understands everything, just he cannot express himself through words.
Right.
And so it worked. And again, I think not only police enforcement, but like hospitals,
Mm-hmm.
emergency rooms, any public service should watch this movie and get more education from autism advocates like your mom and yourself.
Very much so, and thank you for that compliment. And I will tell you, my cousin is an OBGYN, and I know when she
Mhm.
had to get a shot, and back when I was a kid, and she and I would watch this show. Whenever she gets a shot, she would say, "Sesame Street," and that would kind of ease the pain for her. And
Right.
I grew up
Yeah.
loving Star Wars. I get the prick, lightsaber.
Yep.
So thinking
Whatever
about
helps.
more pleasant, but
Yeah.
yeah, I admit it kind of hurts at first, or getting over that initial pain, but eventually I feel better from it, and knowing that it's
Mhm.
going to be over soon and everything's going to be all right. But, so we talked about Be Safe. I wanted to shift gears into the second thing I wanted to talk about is as your son, and this particularly applies to your viewers as well, that
Mhm.
have children that are on the verge of the prequel of transition, about to
Yes.
graduate, move out, find work, etc. I want to encourage all of you to take your children off what's called the diploma path or the diploma track. You see, I've written Come to Life and I'll show you that cover again. Here is volume 1 of the
Right.
book, and we
Uh-huh.
have volume. So this book is me talking to my peers. We have a second volume of Come to Life coming out, which is my mom talking to parents, teachers, therapists about planning transition plans and navigating the educational system, because we found, at least through our own experience, that taking me off what's called the diploma track
Mhm.
aided in my success tremendously. I'll explain what I mean. So we see kids getting good grades, getting A's, B's. They're great academically. It's like, yeah, he's ready to graduate. Let him be someone else's problem. So they kick him or her out the door, so to speak, graduate them, give them the diploma. But then the services that they were getting up to that point and before they became a legal adult disappear,
Right.
fall off the services cliff. It's like
Mhm.
pushed out that door and having it locked behind you. You can't go back and get those services once you accept that diploma.
Mhm.
And my mother saw this problem coming and addressed it head on. So I got to walk with my peers in the graduation ceremony. Inside the envelope, though, was a note said, "Please see the special education director for your diploma." And the special education director for our district had kept my diploma in his desk drawer
Oh.
until the district held up their end of the bargain in providing me services that I needed to succeed. Because
Mhm.
yes, I looked good academically, but I did not have the independent living skills and other skills
Mhm.
to succeed. So my transition plan was kept open past my graduation. And as a result, I got a speech and language therapist, a transition specialist,
Yeah.
cognitive behavioral intervention, a job coach, Department of Rehabilitation, someone to assist me at college with disabled student services, personal trainer, all of these allies, as we call them in Come to
Yeah.
Life, that were here to help me live the life that I want. And I understood why they were there to help me. So,
Mm.
so I want you and all parents listening, take your kids off the diploma track immediately.
Mhm.
Keep their transition plan open. Find any way you can to keep those services going, to give them more time so that they don't get released into the wild without the tools in their toolbox. Otherwise, they are going to crash and burn.
Right. Wow, this is so important. You see, because we as parents, we have our dreams that our children will go and like one day maybe go to the regular college, get the diploma, like you said, but actually we have to think about their need first and this transition and preparation for this future life.
And that's what Come to Life is all about. It's about answering the questions. What do you want? Where do you want to be? What are you good at? So that the kid is answering the questions and dictating where his or her life is going. Instead, the
Mhm.
parents and the therapists and the teachers just say, he's not answering. Oh, but he's good at math. Let's put him into the mathematician path.
Mhm.
And young people with autism have difficulty saying no, or saying, I don't agree with this, or can we look at something else, please? And so
Mhm.
life that they don't want, and that's what's caused them to become depressed and hopeless and anxious and make
Wow.
life outcomes miserable. So when
Could you elaborate on this? Like, I know that some of my friends who are on the spectrum, they communicated to me that for them, when I asked them a favor, like, could we talk about this or can we have a chat about this and that, and they just have a trouble saying no. They
Mhm.
don't know how to say no because they are afraid of being rejected as friends. They are afraid of offending because they don't understand, how I would feel, how I would take it. uh, can you explain from your experience the difficulty to say no and being more, just assertive?
Absolutely. So from a young age, I wanted a girlfriend for the longest time, and I had my sights set on cheerleaders, and even football players would be like, "Hey, that cheerleader over there likes you. Go ask her out." And
Uh-huh.
me with that Batman mentality, went and asked her out, but got rejected. And I
Mm.
did this multiple times because I was being determined.
Yeah.
My sister told my mom, "Okay, maybe cheerleaders aren't for me," and but thinking about the acceptance and wanting romance relationships, this
Hmm.
is what people with autism do want. Even if it doesn't look like they want relationships, they really do. And I wanted to be accepted and I wanted to have friends, girlfriends.
Hmm.
So, mind you, I was going after what I wanted, and that's a good
Mhm.
thing. But at the same time, I found myself saying yes to things I didn't want.
Mhm.
I wanted to say no in those situations. I felt like I was living my life to please others, be a yes man. I wanted to
Mhm.
make others happy. As a result, my happiness deteriorated. And
Right.
this happens a lot, tying back to our conversation about safety. People
Mhm.
with autism and other learning differences get set up and used to commit crimes and aiding and abetting criminals. Like, here, go into Target and bring me this toy, and I'll give you a Starbucks gift card.
Yeah.
And the kid with autism does it without question. And then the kid with autism is there to receive the police and is now in jail, not knowing
Yeah.
what they did wrong. So, yes, I know firsthand and from hearing testimonials and experiences of others
Mhm.
that saying no is what needs to be done. And mind you, yes, I was the same. I didn't want to rock the boat. I didn't want to cause drama. I figured people that supported me knew that what they were talking about had my best interest at hand. But
Mhm.
I discovered, and no offense to parents, but parents can be mistaken and can be wrong. So they may explain a situation, and unless the person with autism says, no, 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 that's not what happened, they're going to
Mhm.
go along with the story. So think about a quote, or rather, a quote that sticks in my mind is, say what you want to say, because those who mind don't matter, and those who matter don't mind. That's Dr. Seuss. So,
Wow. That's
so basically,
brilliant.
so
Yes.
basically, and for any young people listening and parents too, to help the young people, watch out for the people that say, "I'll be your friend if."
Mm.
If you do something for me, I'll be your friend. That's not
Mhm.
unconditional love. That is not a true friend. So
Wow.
watch for those people, and if they don't want you because you won't do something for them, you deserve better people in your life.
Mhm.
So saying no to things that you literally or legitimately don't want to do or you can't help with, or maybe suggest, I know someone who can help you, let me connect you with them. So you're
Mhm.
not the person to dry, but you're still helping them out in some way. But you have to look out for number one, and that means saying no when you mean it.
Wow, that's a good lesson for all of us, because sometimes I have trouble just, when I really look up to someone and I would like to be friends with them. And yeah, like, yeah, I will be friends with you, but it would be great if you could do this and this and this for me, as a friend.
Mm-hmm.
Oh my, that's a very good lesson for me. Thank you, Tom.
Welcome.
Wow. And also, I wanted to ask you about your growing up, with social interaction with other children and with adults, and from your perspective, because I want to share the insight of someone who lived with autism and not just around autism. If you can tell more about your childhood growing up, and the more difficult struggles you faced
Mm-hmm.
during your adolescence years as well.
Sure. So I've mentioned about me not getting calls as a kid
Mhm.
and me wanting a girlfriend really badly and getting rejected. And I found that my own social interactions with my peers were causing me to get rejected all the more. Like I mentioned, I really liked a girl, and when I like a girl, I would call her repeatedly, let her know I'm interested in speaking with her. Well, she
Right.
wasn't reciprocating, and so the girl goes to my sister. My sister seems to be the lifesaver or the liaison, if you will, between me and my peers.
Right.
Girl, my sister, if your brother doesn't stop calling me, I'm going to the police. So my sister explains to my mother what's happening, and my mother set the rule that a conversation is like a tennis game. So I serve you the ball, and you have to serve it back. And I was
Right.
serving,
Yes. Yes.
not getting any serve back. So my mother set the rule: I get two serves, and if she doesn't serve the ball back, I have to find another girl to play with.
Right.
So these underlying social rules, or how social etiquette and how conversations work, it's not something our young people know because they don't have the experience, or they've been rejected, or they haven't picked up on body language and nonverbal communication and social cues. So for
Mhm.
me, after I got into a fight with a football player in my freshman year in high school, and it wasn't even much of a fight. He pushed me, I went down, and that was it.
Wow.
I got removed from the public school system and went to a special school that specialized in social skills for people with autism.
Oh,
And that's
wow.
where I received direct explicit instruction on social skills, all the nonverbal cues like posture, tone of voice, proximity,
Mm-hmm.
head movements, eye contact, all those 90% of our communication being nonverbal. I finally got the 90% that was missing in my life. And the second point of this particular school, it's called the Help Group in Los
Mm-hmm.
Angeles. Help Group. They finally accepted, the students and the teachers, they accepted me for who I was. And I know
Mm-hmm.
we've talked a little bit about know yourself, love yourself in my mantra, but there's also be yourself. And also,
Mm-hmm.
more specifically, be your best self. Because when you start to be your authentic self and you are accepted by your peers and you don't have to adapt to please others all the time,
Mm-hmm.
you can start to be your best self. And you're surrounding yourself with people that will support you, and you are taking their advice or their input to see how they can help you. That's where
Mm-hmm.
you truly thrive. And I did thrive at the help group. I was there for 2 years, and I had the goal to go back to my public school and graduate from that system. So years and years of not being accepted by my public school peers and being rejected by cheerleaders and girls that weren't a good fit for me. Finally, I found solace in a place with other people with autism, and I started to see that there were people like me and that I could help them and they could help me. And the teachers, the class sizes were very small, 10 to 12 students per class. Every teacher had teacher's aid and good behavior, like
Yeah.
exhibiting social skills that we set aside 45 minutes of the day, every day, to work on social skills. And as we use and apply those skills we learned, we would get like currency, like points, if you will, that could be
Yes.
redeemed for, like back in the day, they had Pokemon cards and Blockbuster gift cards.
Yeah.
Remember Blockbuster?
Oh,
So
yes.
you could redeem those social currency points for prizes. So they had a
Mm-hmm.
good system. You do well, you earn your reward.
Right. That's awesome. And also, like we are calling those positive reinforcers or
Yes.
positive reinforcement, and it's part of our ABA treatment therapy, and like potty training, toilet training. Many kids on the spectrum, especially the more severe end, nonverbal and with behavioral outbursts and difficulties, they tend to regress to having problem using toilet properly. So they are wearing pull-ups, and then you have to teach them again, toilet train them, and using those positive reinforcers usually brings the best outcome. And they are doing it, they know how to do it, they just need this extra push. And like those Pokemon cards you mentioned, or any other trading cards, for them it's a big deal, and it motivates them to actually achieve their goal.
And I want to, as long as we're on this topic, a huge help for me over the years was all the services I was getting, all the help I was receiving. My mother always tied it to my goals. So I wanted to have a girlfriend, for example, and she
Right.
told me in social skills classes, "Oh, I don't want to go to social skills classes." "Well, you want to have a girlfriend, don't you?" I'm like, "Yeah." "Well, these social skills classes will help you get there." Or me
Right.
wanting George Lucas's accountant, having to take all these courses, all these uh, writing classes, like learning how to write an essay or a
Hmm.
letter.
Hmm.
Yes, it was tedious, but I reminded myself this is what's going to help me live the life that I want. So whenever there are difficult times or kids aren't liking the services they're getting or they want to quit, remind them this is what you want, isn't it? This is what's
Right.
going to help you get there. You got to do the work. It's not just going to land in your lap. You have to be the one that does the work and make things happen for yourself. So always have their goal, the kid's goal, as that carrot, as to press on, move forward.
Yes. So, did you need? like visual board or anything like that, like a daily schedule that you would see pictures and or written down, step by step, the structure, the regular routine.
I did like structure and routine, not to the point of like having a daily schedule or a
Right.
visual board growing up. And nowadays, I have a cell phone calendar that I use to manage my schedule, and
Hmm.
it's like a to-do list. So I have something on my schedule. After I do it, I erase it, so I don't
Right.
have to revisit it later necessarily, or that that's done out of sight, out of
Yes.
and
Check.
I and I've yeah, and I still do write things down, and I still do uh, keep track of what I have to do as far as the short term and the long term, and I even have a bucket list. About 2 years ago, or no, let me back up even further. 4 years ago, I was
Hmm.
introduced to a man named Jack Canfield. He wrote the Chicken Soup for the Soul books and the Success Principles, and
Hmm.
I started reading the Success Principles, and that was like an eye opener for me. Like, number one principle of success is to take 100% responsibility for my life. No more blaming, no more or blaming my diagnosis, no complaining to others or making excuses,
Mm.
realizing that I create what happens to me and that the past is the past. I can't go back and change it. I can only
Hmm.
move forward,
Wow,
choose
brilliant.
my own future. So 2 years ago, I went to a Jack Canfield event and I actually made a bucket list: 101 things I want to complete before I die. And this
Wow, really?
the traveling to all 50 states, giving a keynote at a national or an international autism conference, seeing Paris, Egypt. I want to go to every continent, including Antarctica. I want I want to climb the highest point on a continent like Mount Kosciuszko in Australia, for instance. It's about 7,000 feet tall.
Woo!
I want to have a star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame one day. I want to have a movie made
You
about my life.
will.
Really taking a step back and asking myself the right questions. What do I want? This. What do I want? This. What do I want? This. Writing it all down and starting getting it on paper, something tangible I can hold and also
Hmm.
put around my house to remind me that this is what I'm working for. So these, not so much calendars or visual schedules nowadays, but now I have little pieces of paper or pictures or inspirational, motivational, affirmational phrases. This is
Yes.
Jack Canfield and so many others like him, like Tony Robbins and other motivational speakers
Hmm.
around your house. Visual reminders of what you want in your life, what you want to create, what you want to live. Put
Hmm.
those around your house and your bedroom and your bathroom and read them and
Yep.
feel the feelings associated with them. I am winning that gold medal. I am getting that standing ovation. I am getting the graduation diploma. Whatever your
Yes.
goal is, have it near where you are constantly and feel how it feels. Imagine how it would feel. And I
Yeah.
know this is difficult for people with autism because they may not be able to imagine something that hasn't happened to them,
Hmm.
but maybe getting them like a made up diploma or a gold medal, a pretend gold medal, put in their
Right.
mind and feel, oh, so this is how it feels to have a gold medal, or that sense of accomplishment. When they
Yes.
when they can experience that, that's gonna be in their mind, and you can remind them, you know how it felt when you got that gold medal. This is gonna make you feel that way too.
Wow. I'm already, thinking about my son and the small steps, in other people's view are humongous steps in his life and in my life. Like yesterday, after the speech and language therapy, he came home. Even though he didn't speak much during the therapy, but he came home and his brain started, processing all the information he heard. And
Yes.
normally he just shows me whatever he wants. Right now he's eating lots of meat and bacon.
Okay.
So turkey bacon, any bacon, So he just hands me a pack of bacon and bacon, which he calls it nenek. And then yesterday he says cook bacon and
Ah.
handed me. I'm like, wow, cook bacon. And then he started going through flashcards, e-flashcards, on his tablet and showing me different plates, cups, knives, forks, and started saying those words and running to the kitchen and bring me, like when he points plate and he runs to the kitchen and brings me a plate, then running cup, 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 with a cup.
Yes.
Oh my goodness, it just, I was a proud mommy.
Very
So
good. Very.
small steps, and I can see that my joy and my cheering for him just boosted this confidence, and he was like, yeah, I can say cup. Yeah,
Yeah.
you say I'm nonverbal? Haha, how about that?
And I also want to say that, and I'm experienced this particularly in recent years, and I know this might, I don't want to offend you, Mama Bear, and other Mama Bears out there, but eventually young people need to live their life and have to be let go.
Yes.
And I know you don't want to release them into the wild. They're your baby, and you have good intentions. You want what's best for them, as well you should. But
Yes.
I recently saw a movie called Please Stand By. This is about a young girl with autism who grew
Uh-huh.
up in a group home, and she had to deliver a script to Paramount Studios in Los Angeles. She lives in San Francisco. Well, she wasn't able to leave that house. Well, she did venture out into the wild and was hell bent on getting that script to Los Angeles. She had a lot of hardships and endured a lot of difficulties along the way, but she discovered she has the power and she
Mm,
has more potential and knows more stuff than her sister and her caregiver and others gave her credit for. So
mm.
I really, as scary as it may be, I do want to suggest that you let your kids go at some point. Let them realize that they can do things that they
Yes.
may not have otherwise known they could do. They don't need someone to hold their hand all the time. And if anything, I actually said this to my mom at one point. Mom, you may be my greatest ally, but you may also be my greatest hindrance,
Wow.
holding me back instead of pushing me or
Talk
forward.
about a
Go.
wake-up call for me.
It is.
And
I
I
mean,
bet my husband is now, yes, yes, come on, preach, Tom, preach. Because that's what my husband is telling
yeah,
me. He was like, you're micromanaging Michael. Let him be. He's an 11-year-old boy. He's almost, in pre-adolescence, and he
yes,
wants to be a man. Let him be a man. This gentle push, like Professor Temple Grandin. She wrote this book as well, The Gentle Push, I believe.
yes,
And she's talking about, just let go, let your child go into the, a little bit uncomfortable zone, let them discover and let them get this strength within them and prove everyone around them and themselves that they can do it.
absolutely. And we were talking about how people with autism tend to not want to rock the boat or have difficulty saying
Hmm.
no because they want to please their parents. And I admit there are times where I've had to yield to my mother, or I think about what would she want, and I put her needs before mine.
Wow.
I do have to start looking out for number one, even if it upsets her, even if it may offend her or she feels rejected. I have to look out for myself, and I want to encourage young people on the spectrum, wherever you are, that you can live the life you want. And parents, you have to let them do
Hmm.
so. Yes, it's difficult to let go, and yes, there will be struggle, there will be failures, but they won't be able to realize their own potential unless you let them do so. And who knows, if you keep coddling them, if you keep, for lack of a better term, imprisoning them, think of Jurassic Park. Life breaks free. Life
Right.
finds a way. They
Yes.
will find a way to unchain themselves from the binds that they're being held in violently if necessary. Again, back to the Jurassic Park
Mhm.
reference, but let them go
Mm.
because they could very well behave differently around others than they do you. And now
Yes.
people will share their deepest secrets with their best friend than their mother, or say
Mm.
and do things that their parents would never approve of when they're let out there. But that's what's allowing them to live life to the fullest and be their
Yes.
best selves. Because life is too damn short to be cooped up in a house, and ships were not meant to sit in harbors all day. Butterflies were once caterpillars. All caterpillars become butterflies. And
Yes.
birds leave the nest so that they know they can fly.
Mm. Wow, Tom. Tell you what, it's like a bucket of cold water right now,
I
awakening me.
know it's a rude awakening, but
Whew.
this conversation has to be had at some point or
Yes.
another in every child and parent's life.
If anyone needed this conversation, it was me. I assure you that. I mean, wow. I mean, I'm trying to let my boy experience everything, but because of his running away tendencies,
Mhm.
I'm a little bit paranoid and terrified. What if he runs on the street and he
That's totally
touches?
understandable, and your safe his safety is your priority as far as
Yes,
safety, and
but I don't want my fear to
again,
limit his, potential.
absolutely
So definitely my first step is going to order your movie, Be Safe, the
be safe.
movie.com. I'm definitely going to show it. I will also send the link to my son's school, to teachers and therapists. I believe everyone should show this movie to their students and parents. And I know that you are scheduled to have a training session with police forces today in LA.
I'm training the LAPD mental evaluation unit in downtown LA today. So I still do work with training police in addition to be safe. And yes, Michael, even nonverbal people can learn to follow instructions and stay
Yes.
where they are. So do not underestimate their potential to learn how to interact with the police. Don't say, train the police, don't train my kid.
Yeah.
It's a two-way street. Kids have to learn how to interact with the police, just like police have to learn to
Mm.
interact with kids. Two-way street.
Wow. Tom, thank you. My goodness. Any final words to our audience, to all the kids that are watching, and parents and therapists, anyone who is watching now and who will be watching a replay? Any final words, your advice, how we can help to increase awareness and bring acceptance, and what can we do to educate others to help those individuals on the spectrum?
Certainly. Sorry, I'm getting a little emotional. I'm so passionate about this. It kind of brings
You
me
are, I mean,
turns
I
the
was
world
like,
a little bit.
I'm
All
holding back tears, believe me.
All right. So my website is Thomas Iland. That's ILAND. So like Rhode Island, but no S.
Hmm.
ThomasIsland.com has my videos. I have events where I'm going and where I've been, and also I keep a blog. I have to do a little bit more on that blog actually, but I've got some really great topics on there. I have 7 friendship skills I learned from my dog. I have a little wiener dog at home here, so
Bridget.
a dog blog. Yeah, Bridge.
Oh,
She's a little wiener dog. I wrote about Toastmasters. I'm finding that Toastmasters is a great way for people with autism or social disorders, or even no disorder at all, really. Someone
uh-huh.
who needs some assistance developing their confidence, bettering their communication, their leadership skills, or practicing getting up in front of an audience, because we'd rather die than talk in front of our peers. I
Hmm.
encourage people to go to Toastmasters clubs if possible, and I wrote an entire blog about that. And also, again, you mentioned besafethemovie.com. That's how you can order the movie. And it's not just the movie, but my mother, being the adjunct professor in special ed, she wrote an entire 300-page differentiated curriculum to go along with the movie, so you can do exercises and role playing with your young people
Wow.
and tailor to their learning style, because she knows about the spectrum and the different ways people learn. So she wrote the curriculum. And she also has available through besafethemovie.com self-disclosure cards, because the police want to know who you are and how they can
Yes.
help. So there are self-disclosure cards like I have autism, I have intellectual disability, I have learning disability, I have Alzheimer's,
Wow.
Down syndrome, available through Be Safe the Movie. And we have an episode on how to produce that card, because if you go straight for it,
Hmm.
that could be dangerous. So you could say, I have autism, and I show you my card or my
Uh-huh.
self-disclosure, and that will show ways to help the person have a place for emergency contact. And
Yes.
so lots and lots of tools for safety available at besafethemovie.com,
Mhm.
thomasisland.com for more about me and what's coming up in my life.
Wonderful. You are a superstar. I'm your biggest fan. When I'm watching your presentation, it's always something that's like, a ball bing idea, like, oh wow. I would never think about that. I mean, you are the voice. If, we're talking about autism advocacy,
Mm-hmm.
you are the best representative. I mean, you are educating, and it's not just for autism community. You are giving hope to people. You are motivating us. You are teaching us how to rediscover ourselves and how to love ourselves and be ourselves.
Yep.
You know, it's so important. People don't realize what a difference it makes once you are comfortable in your own skin and you love yourself
Yes.
as you are. You become the best version of yourself,
Very
and
much.
then you are being yourself.
And
So
be your best self at
be
that.
your best self. That's and I think that closes our topic. I hope we can have another chat
I'd love.
sometime in the future.
I would
We
love
want
to.
to follow up with you and your life and your career. We want to wish you, you know, many more conferences. I want some of the points on your bucket list checked
Yeah.
out by
Oh,
the time we speak again next
yeah.
time in the future. And Tom, we love you. Thank you so much for everything that you do for our community. Thank you for awakening me. And I can assure you, I will do my best to help my boy become the best version of himself.
Awesome, Ula. And
Thank you. Thank you,
you
Tom.
have a great day.
God bless you. Thank you so much.
Bye.
Bye.